Good morning, and welcome back to You Be the Judge. We're in our studio at 201 Franklin Avenue this morning, and we're continuing our series on the faces of fracking. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last 3 weeks, I've been honored to travel through the Northeast and meet some of the most fascinating people that I've ever met in my life. People who are afraid, people who are determined, people who have been affected by the gas exploration industry, and people who are got a resolve and a steely resolve to fight for their neighbors, to try to bring some sanity to a system that seems to have gone totally haywire. My guests today are from the Gas Drilling Awareness Coalition. Its president, Dr. Tom Junta. Tom, thank you so much for being here. And an expert and a friend of mine, Norm Tomchak, who has made it his life's work over the last year to educate people about the dangers of not only gas drilling, but particularly the transportation of natural gas through pipelines, through stations that take water out of the gas and create all sorts of problems for people in the communities, compressor stations. And we're going to talk a lot about what's happening down in the Luzerne County area, Dallas, where not too long ago, a natural gas company thought it was a good idea to put a compressor station right next to the Dallas high school, grade school, middle school, and put those kids at risk. And fortunately for the people in the Dallas School District, there were people like Tom Junta and Norm Tomchak and many, many others who fought that and continue the fight. And Doctor, tell me a little bit about the Gas Drilling Awareness Coalition first.
Well, we formed our group about a year ago. Maybe about a dozen people met in a friend's basement. We were all concerned about drilling and leasing that was occurring in Luzerne County. And we started showing up at the same events, and we decided to form the coalition to educate the public, because the public doesn't know necessarily everything that's going on.
You've got a website?
We have a website, gdacoalition.org.
And people can go there and get information?
People can go there and get information. Okay. And we've been giving presentations. We've been hiring nationally known speakers, engineers and geologists and scientists to talk about this so that we could educate our legislators and the officials that are making the decisions.
You brought Mayor Calvin Tillman in just recently.
Yes, about 2 weeks ago.
And Dr. Conrad Volz from the Department of, from the University of Pittsburgh.
Public Health, yes. And Dr. Ingraffia from Cornell University. Yes, so we've had some pretty good successful speaking engagements. I've been giving personal presentations in different communities around the area.
And Norm, I've heard you very dynamically and bombastically speak to audiences about the problems that lie ahead for our communities and for our country as a result of our aging pipeline system. I know you get carried away, but it's great to hear it.
He's passionate.
You wake up an audience, and it's great. Tell us a little bit about the problems with transmission of natural gas through the existing pipelines.
Well, the infrastructure has been there for since the 50s. You know, the interstate pipelines have been there since 1950 and change, and not too much has been done to improve them. Unfortunately, we have, people did not respect pipelines years ago. They just took it for granted, and in the ensuing years, they began to build buildings close to them. They began to build housing developments close to them, right next to them.
When we come back, Norm, I want to talk a little bit about the disasters that we've seen as a result of pipeline explosions and whether we can expect more. And then, Tom, I want to talk to you about this fracking, and I know you have a number of great slides that explain to people exactly what's going on with the fracking. So please stay tuned to a very informative edition of You Be the Judge. Norm, before the break, we talked about the transmission of natural gas through these aging pipelines. Have we had problems in America as a result of the infrastructure?
Yeah, we sure have. Unfortunately, it's all available on the internet for someone who wants to look at it. Just dial in. The most spectacular one, I think, is Edison, New Jersey, which is available. Just dial up Edison, New Jersey pipeline explosion. And this pipe was put in one of the early ones. It's the same as the Transco line that goes around Dallas, Pennsylvania right now. It's about the same age. Blew up in the middle of the night, and the video is right there. It's just spectacular. Flames blazing 300 feet in the air.
People hurt?
People not hurt in that one, no. The most recent one, San Bruno, California, where a faulty weld in the pipeline, once again, same age of the pipelines, it ruptured in a urban neighborhood where people just began to build around this pipeline. 8 fatalities, 32 homes gone. It's all there on the internet to see. It's awful.
Do any of the pipelines around here, are they close to the coal seams in the coal area where we have problems with...
That's a good question. I've never even thought of that too much. But you know, with coal seams are all over the place. We know where the pipelines are. I'll have to look at that one. I suspect that they are. The pipelines are, by the way, 3 feet below the surface. That they consider that a safe distance. And of course, the coal seams are much deeper, but some come close to the surface.
But when we have a subsidence, that's going to create an awful problem for those transmission lines.
That could. What's one of the reasons they think that San Bruno exploded, that there was some seismic activity, and that pipeline operated at 1,000 pounds per square inch. We understand now from the National Transportation Safety Board that it blew up at 357 pounds per square inch. So it's awesome.
Tom, when the gas drillers first came to Luzerne County, your group started to become concerned and you did some research. Tell us a little bit about what exactly hydrofracking is and why there is such a concern by thoughtful people that this is not a safe way to supply energy to America.
Right. I mean, fracking itself has been around for 50 years or more, but it's not the same process that they're using now. They were shallow vertical wells with the very minimal amounts of pressure, water, chemicals. Nowadays, they're using hydrofracking with very high pressures, 5 million gallons on average per well, mixed with about 1% of toxic chemicals ranging from diesel fuel to acids to formaldehydes and things like that, forced underground maybe a mile down and then a mile to the side with horizontal fracturing. On each well pad, they could put anywhere from 4 to 18 wells if they want. They're typically doing about 6 wells on a pad now. And there has been evidence that just the drilling alone has contaminated nearby aquifers and water supplies. And then you have all of the accidents with spills and containment ponds that have overflowed and things like that.
You know, I've been visiting throughout the Northeast an awful lot. I get calls all the time now from people that are concerned. And recently a lady called me to go up and take a look at an impoundment pond in East Smithfield Township. And it was in a stone's throw from an elementary school. And I had to scratch my head and wonder where the PTA was. Because these impoundment ponds, as I understand it, not only hold fluid, but they also have vapors that escape and cause problems with the air that we breathe.
Oh, the air quality issues are unbelievable. It's not just water contamination. There's venting, you know, whether it's from a compressor station, whether it's from a well. You know, you can go up to Dimmock now and you can see flares that are, you know, almost 10 feet high, 4 of them in a row that have been burning for days now, you know, things like that. So there's a lot of potential industrial hazards that come with this operation.
My pitch has been consistently, and I'll stand by it, that if we're going to have extraction of natural gas in Pennsylvania, it's got to be done carefully, and it's got to be done responsibly, and it's got to be done in an area that is nowhere near where people live, where their wells are. I mean, I've seen well pads 50 feet, 100 feet from someone's backyard. And these people have to live with the sounds. I mean, I heard, I was down at the meeting of your organization when you were fighting the variants that they wanted to erect a compressor station. And you talked about the noise of these compressor stations.
Oh, there's a disease called vibratory acoustic disease that has been shown to affect not only your brain, but also even heart thickness, you know, based on just the vibration that comes from these compressor stations. And
Norm, there's also a problem with the danger of these compressor stations with explosions, et cetera. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. You have to raise the pressure of the gas to the pressure of the pipeline that you want to put the gas in, plus a few hundred pounds. So a 1,000 pound per square inch gas line, you have to raise it to 1,200 pounds per square inch. That's a lot of pressure, Todd. That's an awful lot of pressure. And then they put mercaptan into the gas, which is toxic. And
When a tire blows, how many PSIs are there in that tire?
Truck tire, I don't know, 100 and change. Car tire, 36 pounds. So you can imagine, just look at this stuff on the internet, you'll see what it looks like. San Bruno, Claiborne, Texas, amazing.
This was described last week by a gentleman who works for the Catskill Mountain Keepers as the industrialization of rural Pennsylvania. Yeah. But it's not only the industrialization of rural Pennsylvania, it's the industrialization of suburban areas. This governor is suggesting that maybe we ought to have a well pad on every college campus, perhaps next to the library. It makes no sense.
It's actually been going on in Fort Worth, Texas. If you go down to Fort Worth, they have gas drilling areas in very urban schoolyards even, you know. So, if the gas is there, the companies will look to extract it.
I'm privileged to be working very closely with a lawyer from the Fort Worth area who represents one of the fellows that you had up here, Tim Ruggiero, in his fight with the gas companies. And when I first talked to him in December and asked him to come up and get involved here, he said to me, he said, "You're not going to believe what's going to happen to your state." He said, "You're not going to believe." He said, "I would never have thought that Fort Worth, Texas, and the surrounding areas, the suburban areas where these homes are $500 to $1 million homes, have lost value just unbelievably."
Oh, and if you look out west, I mean, you just have to look at the experience of what's happened in Wyoming and Colorado, where previous countrysides that had pristine air now have smog worse than LA from some of the air quality problems.
They say the west slope of the Rockies is just a wasteland with drilling and farmers that have lost their cattle. Were you up at Leroy by any chance when they had that
No, I wasn't.
The well blow? I was touched by the fact, and I think we might have some footage of it, that while they were still repairing the blowout, and while fracking fluid was still leaking into the fields, there was a herd of dairy cattle.
Right there.
You had to wonder, how do we test our milk at this point? What's going on? And it's a frightening thing.
Nobody's calculating those costs. You know, are people going to stop buying Pennsylvania dairy products and beef and things like that, or the loss of tourism and stuff like that? We're talking about the jobs, but nobody's talking about the tourism, the agriculture, and the money that we're going to lose in the negative health effects that people are going to be experiencing.
And the overall cost to the state of Pennsylvania for our roads, for our infrastructure, the cost to communities for police and fire protection.
If there's a disaster.
That's exactly right.
Insurance.
And
rates will go crazy.
We are the only state in the union that doesn't tax them because we don't want them to leave. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned to You Be the Judge. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the chemicals that are used in these frac fluids and why it's such a secret, why Dick Cheney insisted that they be exempted from the Safe Drinking Water Act. So please stay tuned to You Be the Judge. Welcome back to You Be the Judge in our series of reports on hydrofracking and how it's affecting the people in northeastern Pennsylvania. Norm, I had the privilege of attending one of your meetings, and you gave a very impassioned talk about the problems with these compression stations and metering stations. And when we were on the break, we talked about how the gas industry gets into a community very simply by asking for a variance to put in a metering station that would seem not to bother anybody. Tell our viewers what happens when a metering station comes in and what risks it is to the health of the community.
It's on the surface, it seems rather innocuous, doesn't it? But you know what? There's no such thing as a metering station, and there's no such thing as a pipeline, and there's no such thing as just a gas well. People have heard me say that before and they scratch their head, but it's true. It's a package deal. You don't get one without the other. A gas well can't live by itself. A pipeline can't live by itself. It's a package deal. You've got to get the gas out, you've got to get it clean, you've got to get it to the transcontinental line for marketing, and to do that you need the whole ball of wax. Well, every single step of the way, Todd, is an opportunity for problems. First of all, consider that Williams wants to put a metering station close to the high school, and so does Chief LLC. Well, to do that, they have to run a pipeline, a gathering pipeline, from their last compressor site to this site where they can connect to the interstate gas line and get paid for the product and get it to the markets. They have admitted in a hearing that the gas that's in what they call the line pack, that's the inoperative, the line that's just sitting there with gas in it, natural gas in it, will be unodorized from the last compressor station to the metering station. That means it doesn't smell like rotten eggs. It doesn't have to until it gets to market, until it gets into the interstate pipeline. So why would you want to have 33 miles of unodorized gas at 1,000 psi underneath your feet? And that's what it's going to be. No, that's just one of them. Then when it gets to the metering station, how many connections are there? Get on the internet, find out how many pipes leak in the natural gas industry. We were told many times that they're, what, 3%?
3% on average.
They're banking on a 3% leak on their entire infrastructure of natural gas, whether odorized or unodorized.
How about the infrared pictures that you see of some of the gas that's constantly escaping that people aren't aware of?
I saw those yesterday, and they
Amazing,
are
aren't they?
Fascinating. How much you look at a site and there's nothing there, and you put it
Right.
on infrared, and my God, it looks like something that you'd see. In
The condensate tanks at a compressor station, every one of them vents to the atmosphere.
We talk when we talk hydrofracking about the toxic solution that they use. Bob Casey is attempting to have the Clean Water Act exemption that the industry now has taken away with his Frack Act. But I just spoke with some folks yesterday. I had to tell them actually over the weekend that their wells were contaminated by glutaraldehyde, a substance that is used almost exclusively in gas exploration to clean the bacteria out of the mud that they use. I was told, and I've gone to so many conferences where industry spokesmen say, look, we're working 5,000 feet below the surface. We can't, these chemicals can't get back up into the aquifer. But what they don't tell people is when they do a sloppy job in sinking their vertical well, and they don't have it cemented properly, and they cut corners to save money, on the way down, that can escape, and on the way back up, it can escape. And you've seen that throughout northeastern Pennsylvania.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see some of this stuff. When you're putting a casing through an aquifer, and then you're doing explosions at 15,000 psi with these fracking solutions, and then you have, say, Dimick, maybe 60 or more wells in a 9 square mile area, you have pressures forcing this stuff all over. If it was such a safe activity, why would they need the exemptions from Safe Drinking Water Act, from the Clean Air Act, from the Superfund Act? Why do they need those exemptions if it's such a safe process? The Duke University study that just came out last week that showed methane levels at, if you're within a kilometer of a gas well, 85% chance that you're going to have methane, which is the natural gas that's coming from the drilling sites into your water supply.
And responsible. You know, this country was built on a sense that we are responsible for the misconduct that causes harm to others. I've never seen less responsible industry than the gas industry. There's always an excuse. We have a group of families that when DEP came in, you know what their answer was to the fact that these wells, within 5 days of the vertical well being sunk, had methane in their wells? It was an earthquake in Quebec. Now that's laughable, and to date, their homes, once valued at $300,000 to $400,000, have no value at all today. They're
That's a
worth
sad story.
the land value. Dimick the same way. People went up there. I spoke to a number of people, Victoria Schweitzer, and she talks about the fact that her home, her dream home, she and her husband were going to retire at, has no value now.
It's worthless.
If you don't have water, it's no value.
Beautiful home.
Pennsylvania, constitutional protection
Clean air,
of our
clean
clean
water.
air and clean water, and it has been absolutely shred.
Totally disregarded.
Yeah.
The fines alone are too inadequate. It's just the cost of doing business. I mean, if you look at how many DEP inspectors, we have like 202 inspectors for over 70,000 gas and oil wells throughout the state.
But $1 million fine to Chesapeake looks like a lot of money.
To
But
the average person,
it means nothing.
No.
It means nothing. One well cost them $5 million to put in, so it's 20% the cost of one well, and they're putting up 5, 6, 7 a day.
It's only
not gonna defer them.
$2,500 to plug a well. That's the fine if you don't do it. It costs $100,000 or more to plug a well. Why would they do that? Why do we have so many abandoned wells throughout Pennsylvania? There's no responsibility there.
You know, those of us that live in the coal fields, and I've heard Senator Casey say this, we should learn the lessons of the past or we're bound to relive them. And we're going to relive them with natural gas.
We won't.
And that's unfortunate. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned as we close out the show. I've got a question for both of our guests, and I think it's an important question that you're going to want to hear. So please stay tuned to You Be the Judge. Before the break, I promised you that I'd have a question for both of these guests. And the question for both of you is, what's the solution? What can citizens who have the same interests that you do to try to help this problem?
People have to get involved, and we're trying to educate the public. I mean, that's where our goal is basically information is power, and hopefully when these people have some more information about what's going on in their communities, they'll get involved, they'll talk to their legislators and hold the decision makers accountable to make the right decisions to keep this away from our urban areas, to keep this away from our fresh drinking water supplies. That would be my goal.
Norm?
Fossil fuel is going to go away. You know, there's just no two ways about it. Coal is gone because of economics. Natural gas will go away. Oil will go away real soon. What are you going to do? It's that simple. While we're looking for a bridge fuel, and that makes sense, you know, if we can do it responsibly, and I don't like the bad history of safety that this industry has a really bad culture of safety. But if we can do it responsibly away from urban areas, it's a bridge fuel. It's a bridge fuel. It's not the solution. What's the solution long term? What's wrong with solar? You know, it's becoming very affordable. What's wrong with wind power? It's becoming very popular, and it's renewable.
I'm a great believer in the political system. I believe that our legislators care, but I believe they're insulated and surrounded by lobbyists who give them information that's false and give them money that helps jade them somewhat. And I believe the solution may be in citizen lobbies. I'd like to see a day where people from Washington County and Westmoreland County and Jefferson County and Juniata County and Bradford County all descend on the Capitol with water bottles, prepared to talk to their legislators and bring their kids who've been poisoned by this god-awful fracking fluids that's getting into people's waters, and show that, in fact, the public is going to turn, because come November, the next election is the legislative election. And let's scare the legislators straight. And we need to do that, whether they're in Gasland or whether they're in suburban Philadelphia or they're downtown Philadelphia. Because Philadelphians, they use the Delaware water for drinking water. We get 6 million people that drink water out of the Chesapeake, or out of the Susquehanna River. We need to fight back, and if we do, maybe that's the solution. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, learn about this issue, talk to people like Dr. Tom Junta and Norm Tomchak, and please be involved, because you need to be the judge. I'm Todd O'Malley with the law offices of O'Malley & Langen. If I say the word tragedy, what do you think? Floods? Hurricanes? Devastation on a huge scale. I bet not one of you thought work injury. And that's a problem in our society. Just because something happens one person at a time doesn't make it any less significant. Over 3.5 million people are injured or killed on the job every year, each an individual tragedy. If you've been hurt at work, call O'Malley & Langen, 1-800-817-COMP.